Wake that ass up.
In the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ MV, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building.
Our guy.
Yes, indeed.
Jalen Rose.
What up, doe?
Welcome
How
back.
are you, my brother?
I'm blessed. It's a family affair. As always, I want to make sure I start any interview I ever do with you guys by saluting each of you in your own right.
Thank you.
I'm really fortunate that I believe I'm probably a couple of years older than each of you, but I got a chance in the multimedia to watch all of y'all come up together
Word.
and individually. And the most proud thing for me is when I do a show, New York Post, Renaissance Man, new episode each Thursday. I've had each of you on the show.
Word. Absolutely.
That's crazy. In your
Word up.
own right, each of you have been on the show, so I thank you guys very much.
Thanks for having us every
Yeah,
time,
we thank
man.
you too. I always say Jalen Rose is like, as far as for my career as a woman, you've been like one of the most respectful, amazing people to me. So I appreciate you for
Thank
that
you.
from early on for me when I was at Sirius.
Appreciate that, and thank you for encouraging me to join Twitter. I appreciate that.
Now, before we get into anything else, have you heard the new Kendrick Lamar?
I heard it, I didn't study it.
Oh, okay, got
For
you.
those
got you,
that
got
don't
you.
know what that means,
Got
like
you,
I've
got
listened
you.
to it, I was on the move, I was using the phone, I was jumping in and out of stuff.
Got you.
But I gotta sit with it.
So you didn't even see the video yet?
I ain't seen the video yet either.
Oh, you gotta see the video.
Woo, I can't wait. Yeah, can't wait.
Now let's start NBA, man. A lot
Okay.
going on in NBA. First and foremost, who do you think's gonna take it all? Let's start there.
I think taking it all this year, wow, that's a tough question. It's literally wide open this year. I want to say the Phoenix Suns,
Even after this weekend?
even after
Okay.
this weekend, because I believe in CP3.
Okay.
And they've been the best team in basketball all year. And while they're struggling, and he's struggling right now, Devin Booker was still balling yesterday. I think they'll find a way to advance against the Mavs. I know the Warriors, new era run TMC almost with the Splash Brothers and Poole look crazy out there. But I think the defending champions of the Western Conference with CP and Book and Ayton and Bridges, they find a way to win the West. Right now, if Middleton comes back, I feel like the Bucks will have what it takes to win the East. I know on paper, for especially East Coast bias and people that like, old school traditional NBA, watching the Bucks and the Suns probably is not the quote unquote attractive series everybody wants me to say, but I believe that's what it's gonna be.
My preseason pick was Golden State. So I'm
I ain't
sticking
mad
with
at
that.
that. I ain't mad at that. But the one thing I think the further they go, they drafted Wiseman because they need to be taller at some point. And Draymond does a great job, obviously, Defensive Player of the Year candidate, of holding it down and being an anchor defensively. But you're going to need one more tall guy. Like Kuminga gave him great minutes. He's a rookie. He was balling in the previous game, and I think he scored 18 points. But I think you're going to need another big guy to go against Ayton and JaVale McGee and Bismack Biyombo in the next series.
Now what happened with Brooklyn?
What happened with Brooklyn is you can't cheat the game. I think who said it? Our guy Styles, get married to the game but never have a kid with it. I think that's what I saw with them. And what I mean is talented on paper. Like when they first signed, like as you guys know, I work in New York doing the Post. So like I remember when they signed, and I was like everybody else, like this might be a reincarnation of what happened in Miami when LeBron went down there. And then all of a sudden I see like KD was invested clearly because KD's just a beast. KD will play anywhere. But he got injured this year. And James Harden was looking at KD like I'm Belly's like, that's your man. Like, y'all brought me here, but he won't get vaccinated.
Right.
So what's up with your man?
Right.
And so James Harden like, you know what? I don't want to play in Brooklyn no more. And he basically quit on the team.
And you knew that he was going to leave, and you kept saying that.
Yeah, correct. And the thing is, there was a game where James Harden was like, he couldn't play because his hand was hurt. You know what I'm saying? Like he was not invested. So you basically quit on the Rockets and you quit on the Nets. And you get what you want, a chance to go to Philly. He finally played like it last night.
Yeah.
But where does that leave the Nets? I got a few questions. How did Ben Simmons pass a physical?
Yeah, if he needs surgery now.
He needed surgery, right?
He ain't played basketball since last June.
Yeah.
If he ain't played basketball in almost a year and I'm about to trade for you, I know he took a physical.
Right.
That's the first question
Yeah.
I'll ask. The second thing is you got to do that deal in the offseason because you can't give James what he want. out. No, you about to play with us this year. I'm bringing all 3 of them in the room. And like, I know whatever. When the trade deadline passed, y'all playing one playoff together. And I'm going to see what happened. Because I haven't seen anything from Ben yet.
Yeah.
He said he has some emotional issues with Philly. And clearly he has some back issues with Philly. He took a Toradol shot when he first got to the Nets. That's what I was trying to tell everyone that was saying he was being weak or he was being soft. I'm like, a basketball player ain't lining up to take a shot in his back. Like, something is really wrong with him. And so for me, if they would have did the deal in the offseason, you bring him in the building, you introduce him to your therapist, you introduce him to the trainer, you get him used to New York City, and he has an offseason, he has a preseason, and then you have the best chance to get the best version of Ben Simmons. So I don't think really for the Nets, any of that worked out in their favor. And therefore the Nets, while they still have KD and Kyrie, they'll be a contender, but they won't be like the favorite.
Why do you think Steve Nash doesn't get the criticism I think he should get? Like, Steve Nash is a terrible coach.
Because there are 2 different styles when you watch Boston and the Nets play. This is why Boston bullied the Nets. Because when Jaylen Brown does a turnover or makes a mistake, Ime Udoka, Marcus Smart, whoever, they're up in his face like, dog, what's happening? When James Harden lets the ball roll into the backcourt at Detroit and he doesn't bend over to pick it up, like Steve Nash doesn't say anything to him. So why is that? Because you got to allow yourself to be coached. So this is the coach they wanted. So it don't even matter. Like, it is Kyrie, for example, going to allow himself to be coached? It wasn't Steve Nash's fault that he didn't get vaccinated. That was a personal choice. We all have a choice. But when you make that choice in a team sport, now all of a sudden you making us 6 seed, 7 seed, 8 seed. Then KD get hurt, 9th seed, 10th seed, 11th seed. Now we got to play all of these minutes to try to fight to get back in the playoffs, and it was just too much to happen. So when they get an offseason, even if they don't have Ben, just having those 2, they'll be one of the top teams in the East, and they'll get closer to meeting expectation. But it is funny that they won the same amount of playoff games as the Knicks this year.
That's a fact.
Do you think that they could win without a strong defense?
No.
No.
No way.
No, ma'am, they can't. And the Bucks will show you that. The Boston Celtics show you that. The Miami Heat show you that. Those are 3 teams. If you don't play D, you're not beating them.
That's right.
So, no, they're going to have to figure out what to do on the interior, get KD some help. They're thin up front. KD obviously is not, built to be banging other bigs. And Claxton is a young big that could catch lobs, but he's not, physically imposing. And Drummond doesn't really, defend a pick and roll and block shots. So they will need to shore up some rim protection.
Now, when you played in the league, there was elbows, there was punches, there was knees, there was all types of things. Now, if you do half of that, you get a technical and you get suspended. Is the league too soft, and is it making it to the point where the refs control the league too much?
The refs end up having too much influence because the league wants players to have longevity. That's really what it's not only on the players. The players actually got smart, and I'll tell you what happened in reverse. So the teams, and look at a guy like Al Horford. He was just with OKC 2 seasons ago. They were trying to tank. So they told him basically just to sit down. He got paid that whole season, went to Boston. Now he's starting on the Celtics. So it works both ways. Look at John Wall.
John Wall, yeah.
The Rockets say they don't want him to get hurt because they want to make sure that they get more value on the player. So they're willing to pay him versus him playing with the team. And so what ends up happening is guys say, if you want, and the team says, I'm going to pay Yee $200 million. It ain't as important for her to play 82 games for me. It's important for her to play 10 years for me. That's how they look at us that as a different sort of asset now. And then in return, the players say, I can get the same money, but only play 65 games? Cool. Kawhi never play 82 games again. You see what I mean? So it works in reverse. And what ends up happening is fans get cheated.
They do.
Because as a Detroit fan, I go to a lot of games. We're not one of the best teams in the league. It makes me mad when the starters and the best teams on the other opposing squad ain't playing. See, y'all in New York, at least the best player is going to always play here. A team like Detroit, it's like third, fourth, fifth guy in the lineup. And so what is going to change? This what is going to change. The players in the league are both going to sit down and start creating some benchmarks about how many games somebody should play. And I believe the secondary benchmark is you should only sit home games. Your home fans get a chance to see you play 41 times. Why are you missing road games? Would you only go to Detroit once or twice? You only go to OKC once or twice, depending on your conference. You should only be able to miss or do load management in a road game, not a home game. I think that's something that's going to
I
change.
can't even imagine wanting to sit out a game and watch your team. Like, have you ever played with injuries, and have you ever, because like, what makes you want to not win, and not be part of that?
That's the competitive part that some players don't allow that to happen. Like, there are certain players in the league, like Mikal Bridges for the Phoenix Suns. He played all 82 games. He never missed games at Villanova. Like, that's who he is. That's who I tried to be as a player. That's who you needed to be in the league as a player. You needed to be somebody that was going to be at practice plus be at the game. And for me, missing a game is definitely a missed opportunity to look at how like one day, one play can change an athlete's life. Look at Lynn Sanity. Like, he played like 2 weeks, and that changed like his whole life.
Oh, yeah, his whole life, his whole
Like,
career.
yeah, his whole, like, the dynamics of his family name, like everything. Like, that's what happens in sports. Like, one game, one play, one situation can like propel you in a lot of ways. So for me to sit when you're healthy, I just think it's lame.
That's why I think, that's a stat that people don't talk about when it comes to Jordan, which is another reason he's the best.
Correct.
Played 9 seasons, 82 games.
Correct.
Like,
Injured and everything.
Correct. And that's and see, that's what we respect. You see, like, we respect when the box office player understands that people are paying to come watch them play, they show up. Like, and you can't have an MV car show when you ain't there.
Correct.
And it's like, oh, you know what? He tired from last weekend.
Yeah.
So somebody else gonna fill in for him. It was the cars will still be the same, but the show's not the same. And that's what people deserve when they're paying these exorbitant amount for tickets to come watch our favorite players play.
now let's talk about this new campaign you got, new initiative, Me and You, You and Me, is an HIV prevention initiative.
Yes.
What made you want to get involved with that?
With ViiV Healthcare. And when I was growing up as an ascendant athlete, my favorite player and my childhood idol, Irvin Magic Johnson, contracted HIV. And I'll never forget that day going to practice, writing Magic 32 on my shoes, and it changed how I approached my sexual habits as a young person growing up. And I started listening to songs like BDP, Jimmy, Different. Truly, like, for those that lived that era. And you know what? Just watching you say the name of the campaign, Me and You and Me, is actually one of the reasons why I wanted to get involved. Because if this was the 90s, we'd be keying and saying no homo.
Me and You, You and Me.
Yeah.
Right?
I can see that.
And so that.
Oh, yeah, okay. Me and You, You and Me.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Right.
All right. I get it. Yeah, I get it.
Right. And so what ends up happening is that stops blacks from having a conversation. That stops straight people from having a conversation. And women, in particular, black women, are very disproportionately affected by this. Like 1 in 48 black women will contract HIV. That's not a lot. 1 in 48?
Wow.
Versus white women, I believe, is 1 in 880.
Why is it?
Testing, prevention, the conversation,
Knowledge.
and also people that are continued carriers that never get tested.
I ran into somebody over the weekend that actually worked on this campaign, and he was saying that it was really difficult to get black men involved. And that was like one of the hardest things. They were so happy that you stepped up to the plate to be involved.
Absolutely. Black man, an athlete. I'm from the hood. I talked about my childhood idol contracting HIV, and these are just conversations we don't have that we need to have. And I was excited to not only it was classy, it was tastefully done, and how they set it up is you do a phone conversation with somebody that you don't know, and they ask you a series of questions. And we did a couple of those phone conversations, and then you meet the person, as you're about to do the shoot. So it's like I've talked to this person maybe an hour, 2 separate times. So now we're meeting for the first time. And that person was Tina Knowles.
Wow.
It sure was.
Wow.
And so for me, after talking to her a couple of times and I see the queen walking towards me, I'm like, yo, they did a great job of embodying how black women are so very affected by this. Black men never discuss this, and we're both public figures, and like I know who she is. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, as I was walking towards her, I was just thinking about the genius in the campaign and how proud I was to be a part of it.
Do you remember where you were when you first heard that Magic Johnson had contracted HIV?
I do. I was at Chrysler Arena, member of the Fab Five. Shout out to Ray, Jimmy, Chris, and Juwan. And we were about to, I think we were on the practice floor, and they pulled us all off practice. And they told us the news, like for the youngsters, there was no internet, there was no YouTube or whatever. We was like gathering around watching
breaking
it on
press
TV.
conference.
Breaking
Yeah.
press conference, yeah.
Exactly. It was breaking news, like, uh-oh. And so when it happened, like, I started crying because that was a time where we felt like
It was a death sentence.
that was a
Yeah,
death
You're gonna
sentence.
die, yeah.
And then we started to look at bleeding different, sex different, the physicality of the game different. And remember, there was a time when Magic was like Magic is from Michigan, and I'm a tall point guard, so that's my idol. Like I call him the Hall of Fame mogul. That is my idol to this day. And I'm from Detroit, so Isaiah Thomas and the Bad Boys are my team. And one of my favorite All-Star games is when Magic returned to play in that game.
That was
yeah, that was the
fantastic.
best.
Right,
What?
And he
I got
was
that
draining
card.
threes.
That was
And
amazing. Yeah.
that's one of the greatest moments in the history of the NBA because that's a hurdle that the NBA took first in sports to embrace an athlete that had HIV when normally that person was ostracized. I believe around that time, before or after Eazy-E contracted AIDS and then he died. And so that was a huge thing for our community.
Yeah, the crazy thing was all the misconceptions, right? Because I remember my pops and my uncles, first thing they said was, well, you know, Magic and Isaiah, they've been gay.
Yes.
That was one thing. And then I remember Karl Malone saying, I'm not playing against him. What if he bleed on me? And that stuff right now sounds so ignorant, but at the time, we didn't have
know.
any
There was no
information.
knowledge.
We didn't have
Yeah.
any
Very
information.
little knowledge.
And that's the part about we thinking it's a death sentence, Charlamagne. It's like, oh my God, Magic got HIV. Is Magic gonna die? Like we were watching the All-Star game thinking like, what is about to happen? And like literally, what is about to, like around this time, like there was some bizarre things happening in sports. It's like when Hank Gathers, I remember he was playing and he collapsed and he died. So there were a lot of different things that were happening in sports. We were just watching and glued to the TV, and just to see his big smile and to see him knocking down threes and stuff like
Yeah.
that gave us a different level of heightened awareness that we needed to move forward with.
I always wondered, you probably know, when he came back, why didn't he stay? Remember he came back to play for the Lakers? Like, what happened?
Respectfully, he was past his prime.
Oh, okay. So it had nothing to do with,
What coming back to play
HIV.
was just an exclamation point that I conquered this, you can conquer this, and I came back to play in the NBA with this.
Got you.
That's really what it was, because I remember I think they was playing against Golden State when he got the ball. He did the fake pass to the right corner. I think it was Spree one. Then he laid it up and got the oohs and ahs. And then I believe it was the game before or after. I was actually going to play against him, and I think something happened where somebody bumped into a ref and got tangled up, and he got ejected or something, but I didn't get a chance to play against him. But, you know, to see Magic and what he's accomplished since then,
Oh, yeah.
like, just think about what like, people talk about his 5 championships as a player, but he's been an executive for like 4 or 5 championships. He got a ring with the Dodgers. Everybody knows, like, the businessman and entrepreneur he's been. So
You're talking about him buying the Broncos now.
how about that? That is crazy.
Yeah.
So for me, when I look at blueprints for my life, it was always what Magic is doing or what Isaiah Thomas was doing.
And then you also have the Jalen Rose Leadership Academy, of course, right,
Yes,
for
thank
over
you.
a decade now. So how does this translate into what you think kids should be learning in school when it comes to HIV prevention?
Thank you. Great question. Prevention is the key. Communications are the key. Obviously, we're not here to, encourage young people to have irresponsible sex type of thing, but it does happen. It's kind of like the drinking or whatever else, or drugs. You don't want young people, you're not encouraging them to do those things, but you understand if you're going to do those things, there has to be a level of responsibility and prevention and respectability for yourself and for your partner and for our community. And so that's no different than educating them about math or science or STEM or anything else. Like, it's really important for us to have these conversations with our young people in our community and make sure that they have the courage to not only accept the teaching, but also be carriers that they can teach other people and be more responsible as they move forward.
And I saw Queen Latifah, by the way, give a speech. She was getting an award from Variety, and she was representing the Jalen Rose Leadership Academy.
That was so much love. I love you, Queen Latifah.
So what's the history
All
between,
hail to the Queen.
Between the two of you? Because she said you guys have known each other since you were teenagers.
So this is crazy. I'm really fortunate that being a member of the Fab Five, like, to see the influence we had on the culture now, like, then I didn't understand it. And I got a chance to go to KMEL Summer Jam in the early 90s. And you guys know it's the biggest hip-hop show that was happening in the world. And that's when Hammer was the biggest artist. And everybody was there. EPMD, P. Rockasio, Smooth, like, every artist, Too Short, like, Salt and Pepper, TLC, like, every artist was there. And I got a chance to meet Naughty by Nature. Shout out to Trigger Tretch and KG and Ben Rock and Latifah as well. And since we met, we stayed in contact. I stayed in contact with them. I stayed in contact with EPMD, my guy Parrish Smith. And I was out there basically to hang out with Too Short and Digital Underground. I met Pac and Saphir when they was in the studio and all of that.
You met Pac?
Absolutely. When you look at, like, the old, like, Pac on performing videos on stage, Money B is standing up there with a Jalen Rose jersey on it. I gave him. True story. And like now you could just buy that stuff. It's no big deal. But to see somebody with a jersey on back then, it was like, oh, they got on the Michigan hat.
Do you remember the interaction with Pac? When I hear people meet that met Pac and Big, it's like mythical to me. Did you remember the interaction?
So he was still like a young artist, like, ready to pay his dues, really.
That was Humpty Dance, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, he was still dancing. Okay,
absolutely. Like, this was about Shock, Money B, and Clee, and, like, Digital. Like, he was a part of the family. He was a part of the crew, and being from the Bay, and it was just so many of them, you know. And I also stayed, as I mentioned, in contact with KG and Latifah. So I used to go to KG's barbecue.
Oh my God! I used to go to that too. He actually lived right around the corner from my parents.
Yes.
So I could walk there. Everybody used to park in our driveway and walk around the corner.
Yes.
We were kind of young, so we had to hop the gate.
Absolutely. Well, so when I was at the Final Four one time, like, it's crazy to see how, like, black men or, like, we were judged by hip hop, and that's why I'm so very grateful that, like, Jalen became a common name, because of, like, the bullet. I just sit here and thought about what you just said. I was like, I had on a Naughty by Nature hoodie and an EPMD hat, and I had a tattoo, and they treated me like I was a thug.
Wow.
Just for those reasons.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sitting at a press conference, they're like, what is Naughty by Nature?
Exactly. If they don't know the group, they're like, Naughty by Nature. What are you saying, Jalen?
Exactly. and they were always gracious enough to invite us to that barbecue. And I got a chance to meet so many people, be in the hood. And it was so much love. And Latifah was always a great leader. And shout to Shaquem, too.
Man.
He's family. And
Legends.
so she was always a great leader and stuff like that. And for her to get acknowledged by Variety and all of the things she can do in the world, that's Queen Latifah. You know, like, I'm happy that she know my name.
Right.
That she even knows about the school that I have. Like, sometimes I have to do a better job of being an ambassador of the school, and I have to stay encouraged myself sometimes, because you get 98% more no's than you get yeses when you're doing the charity work that I do in the community from the hood.
It's
like,
free
I ain't
tuition.
correct. I'm not a superstar. You know what I'm saying? I don't have, like, a company standing behind me with a blank check saying, hey, whatever you need to do, Charlotte, whatever you need to do, I got you. Like, I got to get out here and roll up my sleeves and be the founder of the school, be the president of the board, be the chief fundraiser. Like, these are my responsibilities.
But you are a superstar, though.
Yeah.
Right, but I know.
You are a superstar. There's
you.
not too many people that are culturally as relevant as you and the rest of the Fab Five are.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And so what happens when somebody like Latifah acknowledges the work that I'm doing in Variety magazine, that now takes it, just like the HBO Real Sports interview takes it to an audience that sometimes I don't see or hear.
Right.
and may be that game-changing donor. Because right now I'm trying to raise $10 million for our school.
Well, let's make sure we talk about
How can
that.
people
Absolutely.
donate? How can people donate?
JRLADetroit.com. I mean, if you really want, I put my phone number on here.
Don't put your phone number out there.
I'm the chief fundraiser, but in all honesty, like, it's been a labor of love. We're open enrollment, we're tuition free, we're public charter. But here's the number one thing I want people to take away from the school that I founded. That's a game changer for the black community and the brown community. The job ain't done after high school. So what has happened in the United States of America, we get out of school in June and go back in September, or we get our young people out in senior year, and they throw their hats in the air. You can't even get a job at McDonald's with a high school diploma. The job ain't done. So what I established is a 9 through 16 model, where when you graduate from high school, those 13 through 16 years, we're still there to support you. Community college, college or university, trade school, military, you want to go to barber school, you want to, wherever you want to do, we're still there to support your life, your career, to put you in position to have a job, have a career, and change the dynamics of your family along with being educated. So that's the thing that I'm most proud of.
I would think that it would be easy for you to raise money. All the other NBA players, past and present.
He's like,
He's like, yeah, no.
Here's what I learned, and a lot of times people donate for prestige. I used to believe when I got into the philanthropic thing, like, oh, people just do this for the kindness of their heart. They want to give back to the community. They want to show love. They want to help out. Like, what I've noticed is the majority of the people that like do those major donations is because they have a chance to see their name in lights.
right.
Like, look at the school. Like, I went to Michigan. Like, they've been fundraising since the 1800s. You know what I'm saying? Like, they still have people giving them hundreds and millions of dollars to do buildings on buildings on buildings on buildings. And what ends up happening is in the inner city, we get a fraction of those donations to help our young people. And so I'm still out here plugging away. 11 years in, as I mentioned, we're raising $10 million because I took over an elementary school and converted it into a high school.
Right.
So I have, for example, the best player on my basketball team, shout to Jude Buckets, who going to college after he graduates. He never played a home game because we don't have a gym.
With
Wow.
Dan Gilbert there, I'm surprised he's not involved in fundraising.
Well, Dan has been a supporter.
Okay.
With some internships and some opportunities for our young people, and has been a donor. But the game-changing thing that I believe that is going to happen, like I've had Tom Gores of the Pistons, who's been a terrific supporter of what we do. He's been a 7-figure donor. And the sky's the limit of what I believe is going to happen with the JRLA dynamic, but I'm not going to get discouraged.
What about the state? The state don't provide funding?
So here's the trick. So if I want to be a charter school, which means I want to be independent, you can get the $8,000 a month per student in Detroit, but what happens is the students in West Bloomfield get like $16,000. So now that's why I call it bridging the education gap, because private schools cost $40,000. So imagine if your parents could send you to private school, that's a $500,000 investment K through 12. The suburban kid gets $250,000, and my students get $100,000.
Wow.
Just think about the K through 12. A student gets $100,000 for their education.
Wow.
$100,000. That's laughable. And so that's the money I have to write or raise that I call bridging the education gap. I need this $8,000 student that gets zero state funding for their facility. I just told you we ain't have a gym.
Right.
We get zero state funding for the facility. I'm trying to take the $8,000 student to compete with the $40,000 student in life for the same job, for the same career, for the same seat in the college classroom, and for the same opportunity to be a game changer in our community.
Wow. What is it? I saw you talking about the TV athlete wage gap. What was that?
So, absolutely. So here's what happens in sports. And by the way, there's some extremely talented people that do all types of jobs in multimedia. You guys know this. And I'm really fortunate that I've tried to be, and I'll just say this out loud, like the most complete former athlete to ever do this. So right now I write a column.
New York Post.
New York Post. I DJ Saturday, 1 p.m. on AMP Radio. I do Jalen and Jacoby podcast and television show Monday through Friday. You'll see me featured on ABC and ESPN doing NBA Countdown on the big stage, Christmas Day, NBA Finals, NBA Draft. Those are the biggest stages in basketball. But what ends up happening to the athlete, and this is a barrier, this is a glass ceiling that I'm trying to break, is that we don't get looked at as like rinse and repeat. Like when you guys go to negotiate for this show, or when athletes have an opportunity, we don't look at it like, well, we could just replace one of y'all. You know what I'm saying? It's like, we built this together and we gonna find a way to keep it moving together. It's not like, hey, you know, but working in sports, what ends up happening is the athlete gets looked at as turnkey. It's like, oh, we got you for a couple of years. We got you for who's next? In particular, the black athlete. Like, who's next? Like, oh, okay, you was good. It's not that you're not as good at your job. It's just that they're trying to look for who's next. And then the next thing to your question is those said athletes are the experts as well. I'm not an athlete. One of the dumbest things I actually hear athletes say is, how you gonna talk about me, Charlamagne, but you didn't play in the league?
Yeah.
Like, I just cringe when I hear that. You know what I'm saying? That's like one of the dumbest things we could say.
Why?
Because you don't have to be a guy that played or a young lady that played to have an intelligent opinion about what you just saw.
Correct.
You know, so if that's the case, that means women should never cover football. So that logic just doesn't make sense. But
I will say, in some instances, it does. Like
Correct.
when I'm talking to you about, you know, the NBA and how different was playing when they foul hard, or when it was this and the NBA
Correct.
changed. Only somebody from the NBA can tell the difference of that.
and
Not really.
Yeah.
I can see that.
wouldn't say-
I saw the Bad Boy Pistons and the Knicks back in the 90s.
Yeah,
There's a
but
difference.
But he would know the effect more than anybody else of how it did, if it caused injuries.
Yeah,
if it had
correct.
headaches,
That's
or
And
true.
so
if it-
you're
you know what I mean?
answering his question for me. That means I'm valuable.
Correct.
Because the actual question that needs to get answered, at some point, you're going to need to hear from somebody that did it.
Right.
Correct.
I think both things are
That's the
necessary, yeah.
value.
I think that's why All the Smoke is so popular. I think that's why Inside the NBA with Shaq and Kenny and Chuck is so popular.
Yep.
You know, Jalen and Jacoby. Like, I like hearing people that did it talk about it.
Absolutely. And here's what gets underrated. The players like to hear their voice being said and heard. Like, it's funny. When sometimes when I put on an outfit to go do a show on ABC, I know 95% of the audience is gonna be like, what is he wearing? I do it anyway.
And they're going to check your hairline.
I do it anyway because I'm trying to put on for our culture.
Yeah. Correct.
That's why you see me with a bald head. You see me with 360 waves. You see me with a carry a bat. You see me do all of that.
With a rose lapel.
With a rose lapel, wearing Fear of God, wearing Rich Fresh, doing all of that. But because I understand the value of me doing that, and I know probably it wasn't being done before me,
Yeah.
and it probably won't be done if I wasn't doing it.
Right.
So while I got the chance, that's the value that I think the former athlete has that makes them a unique commodity.
And I know the Fab Five paved the way for Allen Iverson. You know what I mean? I know. I don't know if anybody's ever asked AI that, but I'm sure he got a lot of that confidence from watching y'all show up and be y'all unapologetically black hip hop selves.
No question. The first time I met AI, he ran up to me, tackled me, like, I love you, Negro.
That's AI.
I love you. That's what he literally was like, thank you. Because, and this sounds stupid saying it. Like, don't it sound stupid that we used to talk about AI's tattoo?
Yeah.
I thought it was dope. Yeah.
I know,
But
but
looking back in retrospect,
I'm talking about
yeah.
society. Like,
Oh, yeah,
his
yeah,
jewelry,
yeah,
his
yeah.
Tattoos, his
like-
hair.
Because it's so
Absolutely.
common now.
Yeah.
So he was in the league. To your point, we was in college.
Yeah.
It was like you do you know how much you can be suppressed as a college athlete to the point where that stopped Jimmy and Ray, in my opinion, from truly getting opportunities in the league. If they wanted to they tried to keep us all out the league.
Wow.
You see what I mean?
Wow.
So I remember I had a boss tattoo. I still have it, obviously, duh. I got a tattoo on my chest that say a Black Panther. And one time I was driving to the basket, somebody pulled my jersey. That was the article in the paper the next
Damn.
day. You know what I'm saying?
That's crazy.
That was and I had some fake cubic zirconia earrings. They just thought I was like Scarfacing it. And so as a college kid, it's one thing. He graduated it because he was in the league and MVP doing it.
Yeah, they made rules to stop.
So they
people
was
doing
like,
it.
you know what? These guys out of college. We're going to close that door. Ain't going to be no more of that. But with him in the league, we about to change all these rules. He got cornrows. He got a 4XT. He got 3 bracelets and 2 watches and 5 chains.
Dress code.
That's how we was doing it then. Like we was like, I know when you see the athletes now, you guys feel like they was the first people wearing like multiple jewels and
Not
stuff
at
like
all.
that. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm from Detroit. And shout to the BMF, Big Meech, the OG, and Southwest T. Like that Make It Rain stuff. You guys know that's 313.
You know what else I saw in Detroit? I saw Kevin Johnson is bringing his restaurant there. He
That's
has
awesome.
that Fixins restaurant in L.A. He took over Shaq's old restaurant, and now he said he's about to put one in Detroit.
That's going to be awesome. KJ, an educator, he and his wife Michelle. I actually worked on the board with her that was did some game changing things, and I ate at Fixins in L.A. Had some fried catfish. You
Yes,
know, it was real
delicious.
good. Yes, indeed. Shout out to KJ. That's my guy.
Let's
And he
talk
was a
about
mayor of Sacramento too. which
How
is
about that
amazing.
game changing thing for a former athlete being a mayor? No doubt.
let's talk about the MVP. We were having this conversation earlier.
Okay.
Right? Should the MVP be given after the season's over?
No. No.
Why?
Because you minimize the whole regular season.
But what about the playoffs, though? Because it seems like there's a regular season MVP, a finals MVP, but nothing that you do in the playoffs factors in?
There's a regular season MVP, and then you just said it. There's a finals MVP.
But what about the playoffs? First, second,
the
third
finals
round?
MVP is the playoff MVP.
Right. If you
So
make
they
it to the-
consider the first, second, and third round when they factor in the MVP
No,
final?
what I'm saying is like the regular season is the first 82 games.
Okay.
You have to create a reward for the players. We just talked about load management and players showing up every night. You want them to play for 6-man, most improved, MVP, coach of the year, you defensive player of the year, rookie of the year. Like you want them to show up and play for those awards. And then when that season ends, it's a new season. And then usually the best performer in the playoffs, like last year, it was Giannis, is the playoff/finals MVP.
Yeah.
That does exist.
I just feel like the farther you take your team should factor in.
It does. Giannis won finals MVP last year.
Yeah. Cause
But you don't want, like Cornbread Maxwell, for you old basketball fans, played with the big 3 in Boston. Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish. They won the championship. He had a great NBA finals. He was the finals MVP because he had the best playoff, the best final. He ain't the regular season MVP, though. You see what I'm saying? And so that's how you distinguish between the two.
it's just watching Joker win it after seeing what Embiid not being there for the Heat series and then coming back for 2 games and then tying the series. It's like Embiid should be the MVP.
But this is where we get. I'm a voter, and I'm trying to tell you, whoever does in the playoffs has nothing to do with that regular season award.
Damn.
It's a regular season award. You can't validate the award by saying, "Hey, you see such and such last night. I told you that's why I voted for him as 6-man." Like, that it's a regular season award.
Who'd you vote for, Jalen?
I voted for the Joker.
Really?
I did.
Wow.
And it seems like I
It
was
worked
right.
out.
It seems like I was right. He had a milestone that had never gotten done.
What was it?
2,000 points,
Okay.
1,000 rebounds, and 500 assists in the same season.
Wow.
Like no player has ever done that.
Wow.
No player.
I was also going to ask, you do so many interviews now, not just NBA players. How does it feel when your life now is part of the news? Like they make your personal life part of the news. How do you feel when you have to open up the same paper you work with
Right.
and see your life in there?
Right. And shout out to you and your wife, Gia, for coming on Renaissance, man. I was thinking about this when I was interviewing you guys. And the one thing that I've always done is never appear perfect. Because I didn't get a chance to be because that narrative was already shaped for me. So now I got a chance to just ease into being myself. Like, they already painted me as being so rough and tumble and so
Naughty by nature.
Naughty by nature. Exactly. So now I got a chance to like ease into being myself and just like moving the needle back towards the medium almost. And and because I don't appear perfect, and because I speak on flaws and all, whether good or bad decisions, now all of a sudden you gain autonomy with the audience. And then the second part is people ain't trying to people aren't trying to get that aha gotcha moment, because it's like I'm wide open. It's like I ain't got nothing to hide. What you want to do, what you want to do. But it can be frustrating sometimes when credible media people run with gossip that they know they didn't vet. That's my only thing. You guys know that there's a certain level of people that are tweeting, certain level of people that are responding to your life that you just like should ignore. Like we say about KD, like you can't be responding to somebody with 38 followers.
Right.
But if that person like has a show and they're saying it, that makes it different. But I just I've been a public figure for so long and had so many assassinations on my character, and just tried to continue to reinvent myself that it really doesn't even bother me.
I wanted to ask you, man, what are your thoughts on Juwan Howard's success as head coach of Michigan?
I love Juwan, and I always tell people that even though he and I are the same age, like he's really like 5 years older than me. Like I remember.
Really?
Like,
No.
Well, then I mean, like when I first met him.
Okay.
Like when I first met him, I'm like, dog, how old are you?
Yeah.
Because he had a goatee too, full of that same goatee he had now. I'm like, dog, are you really the same age as us? No, for real, I used to say that to him. But in all honesty, it's just his level of maturity and responsibility. Like he was always the guy in the room that was like, maybe we shouldn't, drink those 40 ounces.
Right.
He was that guy. Maybe we should go to the gym tonight instead of going to the party. Like he was always that guy amongst the group. Anybody will tell you. And so when he got the job, the first thing I said is I'm going to let go of any bitter feelings I have towards Michigan. Because how would you feel if to this day the school that you put on for still don't acknowledge you? That's still to this day, by the way. Like I have a scholarship endowment at Michigan that's graduated students. And there was a time where I was getting letters about my endowment when in theory I wasn't welcome to come back to the school as a former athlete. And so to this day, when he got the job, the first thing I had to do was say, I'm going to ignore that they took down the banners, and I'm going to treat them hiring my brother like the olive branch that squashed the beef. So I bought season tickets. I'm going to be there to support the team. I'm going to be there to support my brother. But I have to say this out loud. We need a Fab Five banner. There should be one banner with all of our numbers up there to say Fab Five. This ain't brain surgery.
Right.
I've seen so many people like go through scandals at their colleges. I've seen people who didn't perform the way we performed, that didn't put we should have a statue.
Yeah.
Like I'm being humble.
And the kids would love that.
Yeah, like Michigan is a football school. And what we were able to do and what Glenn Rice and the championship team was able to do was like something special. So hopefully that happens, and hopefully it doesn't happen over our dead bodies.
And it feels like they should, it's almost like weed, right? Like if you're going to be legalizing weed in certain places across the country.
Well said.
Now that,
well said.
Players are allowed to get paid, reinstate the Fab Five.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. I hope it happens soon.
Tell us about that campaign again, man. Give them the website.
And where can people donate if they want to donate?
A couple of things.
And don't give out your number.
Okay, so to learn more about the Jalen Rose Leadership Academy, please go to jrladetroit.com. We're open enrollment, we're tuition free, we're public charter, we're a 9 through 16 model. This is the actual charity that makes it to the hood, literally. And your support, companies support, businesses support, it's paramount to changing lives. Again, I want to thank Vive in Health for having me here on behalf of the HIV awareness campaign. And again, when you look at the name of the advertisement, me and you and me, you're gonna first giggle.
Yeah.
Right? You're gonna first giggle. And that's the hurdle that we need to get over as black people. Real talk.
All right. Well, we have
Jalen
Jalen
Rose.
Rose.
Yes, indeed. I love you guys. Appreciate you having me on.
And you can come up here anytime
Thank you,
want.
family.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys.
It's the Breakfast Club, Jalen Rose.